So far, we have just learned about what is the selector and what are the types of selector. But still, we don't know the implementation of CSS, how can be used in HTML program. And this will be defined or it will be decided by location. That means how the location of your style sheet will be there, that we are going to learn in today section. Actually, there are three different ways to assign the CSS. The author created a style sheet, that what we are learning in this presentation. Author means the web developer or the users. That means you are going to develop, you are going to create the style sheet. That is you are the author. So we are learning that into this presentation. Next, it will be there something called a user style sheet. Okay, one is the web developer. Another one is there the user style sheet. That means we have installed the browser on our system, and when you open, sometimes might you can see the difference between the text presentation. So the user style sheet allow the individual users to tell the browser to display the page using the individual own custom style sheet, as I mentioned. That means that will be for the only for the user. And this generally this option is available by default in any of the browser. That means when you open, see, we have not used any programming language in the browser, but we get the result when you run the HTML program. That means it is clear that in all the browser, by default, the user style sheet is available. And due to that, we are able to see the result. Another one is the browser style sheet, so which will defines default style, and the browser use the each HTML element. Okay, so what does this mean? That means, see, if now the question will arise that both are looks similar, then what is the difference between this? There is one difference. When you run any HTML program, you can change the style sheet at the particular moment, and again when the moment you refresh the page, it will come to default, that is the browser style sheet or whatever the web developer has been assigned. That is very important here, and we all should know that the importance of style sheet. It is very useful when you are going to develop any bootstrap application. These three types of generally we know the style sheet: author created, user style sheet, and the browser style sheet. Now we know that okay, there are three different ways. That means the style sheet are there. But how you are going to locate? That means which style sheet where you are going to use. Now that is very important. So that means the location will be defined only by the author. That means the web developer. The web developer will create some CSS style rule, and it can be location means it is a store. That means how it is going to be represented in HTML. That's what we have mentioned, that located. That's why we say that the author created CSS will be located, or the style sheet rules will be defined in three different ways, three different location. As I mentioned, CSS style rule can be located in three different location. The first one is called as inline. That means you are going to define the CSS in the line. We were using, hope you remember, we were using paragraph, okay, and we are typing here like a style, okay, is equal to, and we are writing something the style sheet, close, write some text and close the paragraph. Okay. The moment you write this will be called as your inline style sheet. That means in the line you are defining the CSS rule. Okay. Next you have embedded. Embedded means you will be having HTML code that also will come to the output. That means you are going to embed. That means you are going to add in HTML. So wherever you are using, that means within the head tag, before closing the head tag, you are going to use like this style. Okay. I don't have the scribbling pad. Okay. Style, and you write whatever the CSS rule in this, and finally close the style sheet. Style sheet. This is called as embedded. And third one is the external. That means the CSS will be their entire separate file. Okay, that means like .css you have to save, how you are saving .html, same way, and that you have to call into the HTML page. That is your external CSS. And even if you want, you can combine these all three in your HTML program also. It's depend on you how you want. The first one, as we have seen the dev example, now the inline style, as we mentioned, that means the syntax rule, that is CSS. When we'll talk about the style rule, that means CSS. The style rules will be placed within the HTML element via style attribute, as we have seen the example. That means the same line you are going to represent the style rule. As we have seen the example, the same way I've used here h1 tag, I'm using h2 tag, and I'm defining here, it is missing here opening brace. Okay, I'm defining this will be not there. Okay, h2, then style is equal to font size, font hyphen size, which is the style properties. Okay, the value and property and pair will be there. That is the properties value you define, and then the description, whatever. So now this will be used into the CSS. Okay, so this is the example of your inline CSS style. How you can define? Inline CSS used to apply a unique style to a single HTML element. The style sheet you can define another way also. The uh, style rule, which is going to implement or it is going to apply uniquely to the particular HTML element, that is called as inline CSS. You can define however you want. An inline style only affect the element it is defined within. What does it mean? That means it is going to only affect this line. It is not going to affect any other line. Wherever you are going to define, there only it is going to affect. Okay, and it will override any other style definition for the property used in inline style. Okay, using your inline style, generally it discouraged since they increase bandwidth and decrease maintainability, right? Why it is increasing? That means because each line you want to change the some color, some bold letter, each tag, each HTML element, you are going to use the inline. So obviously when you use, your page size will get increased. When your page size will get increased, obviously load size, that means bandwidth, will get increased. When you are opening the page and when you download on the browser, it takes more time to load. But it says that decrease maintainability. Obviously it is decreasing maintainability. It is not increasing, it is decreasing, because you are able to manage, then you have to change each line. Okay, an inline style can however be handy for quickly testing out style changes. What it means that whenever you want to do the changes, you just go to the particular HTML element, change that, see the result. But in when you use in external, then you have to change there, save it, again run, then you will see the difference. This is your inline style. Then next, embedded. Okay, embedded style sheet. That means this will be placed within the head tag with a style element inside that. You can see the example here. I'm using here the head tag as usual. I'm using meta tag and title tag, and now I am defining a style sheet. Okay, the style h1 I'm defining for h1 font size be 24 point, h2 the font size will be 18 point, font weight will be put, and we are closing the style sheet. Now you just go to the body tag, define h1, h2, and it will be represent when you are h1, that means this style sheet will be calling, and when h2, then for h2 this style sheet will be called, and it will represent the, it will display the result. So like that it is there. That is embedded. Internal CSS, just now we said it is used to define only single HTML page. That means each page wise you are going to define, and each HTML element you are defining. But here you can see that wherever if you define h1 in the entire HTML page, everywhere the h1 will be CSS style will be called. That is the benefit here. That's why it means that it is internal CSS will be used to define style for only single HTML, but here you can define in multiple HTML elements. While better than inline style, using embedded styles is also by and large discovered, because as I mentioned, right? So again, if I want to use h1, automatically it will be used. If I want to h2, again it will be used. So no need to write again the same code. That is the advantage of embedded style sheet. Since each HTML document on its style element, and it is more difficult to consistently style multiple documents when you are using embedded style. What it means that? That means whenever you are using the HTML document, that is, this is the entire HTML document, you are defining each style element in that. So it will become more difficult. Why? Because page size again going to be increased here, and it should need to be loaded before the in the browser when you are going to load. This is also there. So that's why I say that is consistently style multiple document when you are using embedded. Next, so the solution for the multiple HTML document, that is the embedded style sheet. That means this style rule will be placed as external text file which have .css extension. Okay, you can see here. That means you are going to link. So when you are going to link external style sheet, that means you are going to use link. Okay, and you are going to rel, that means relevance, name, give the style sheet, href hyperreference, where you have stored your CSS file. That path you have to give. That is the external style sheet. You can use this way. This is by far the most common place to locate style CSS because it provides the best maintainability, as I mentioned. Because any changes, you go to this separate file, change it. No need to change in internally all the HTML elements. The moment if you change in this style sheet, automatically it will get changed. So that's why the best maintainability is there with the external CSS. When you make changes to an external style sheet, the all the HTML document, that means wherever you are using this CSS, if you have 10 pages and you have linked this all 10 pages with this CSS, that means automatically it will update whatever the style sheet you are going to define, that will get updated. And the browser will be able to catch the external style sheet, and it will improve the performance of the site because that is separate file. It will load the next moment when you open another page, because the same CSS you are going to call. So obviously the performance of the particular website will be increased, because the browser, every browser having the catch techniques. So it will catch some data for the time being, and it will give you the result.